whole point of pedagogy is how do we engage the student in the content? And there's a lot of different ways we can do it. There's the conventional way, which is lecture, but we know by practice and by many studies that if they don't practice that information outside of class and keep working with it, that they lose the information, they forget it. Active learning is a way to engage students, but it helps them not only think about the material in a deeper way, but I think that it also forms collaborations and connections with their peers, with the content, and with the instructor. And so I feel like active learning in my classroom allows me to engage them in different ways of thinking, and also for me to make connections with them. One of the strategies I use for active learning is called plickers. What I do is I usually put up in the very beginning of class a question, and I use the plicker questions to kind of calm them and get them into thinking about the material for the day. I use my phone, which is a program, and the phone just scans they have these little QR codes. So I scan it, and then what shows on the screen is a graph of their responses. So it doesn't show who said what, but it does show how many people chose A versus B, C, or D. I wanted to expose students to cells and how to culture cells, but I also wanted them to see how was the first immortalized cell line produced. And it had to do with this woman, her name's Henrietta Lacks. Well, the book sort of surrounds this concept of the immortal cell, but also the fact that they were taken from an African-American female at a time where she didn't have a voice, there was no informed consent. The family had no clue that these cells were being used. And so Rebecca Skloot, who's the author, wanted to bring a voice to these cells due to the fact that these cells are so important to society. What I have students do is I give them a set of questions that they have to answer before they come to class, and so they already kind of know what they are thinking and feeling, and as the footage shows, there's a lot of emotion that comes out of this book. As I mentioned last time, I let you guys run it, so I'll
To start us off, I was wondering what everybody thought about that section with the Gila bomb, with Dr. Gartner's research.
It didn't look like they were under a hood. And so like we're watching now and we're like, what are you doing? You're like, you're contaminating them.
It said in the book that they would be eating at the lab tables, that they were culturing cells at, which seeing how quickly and how much Gila cells can spread.
Like that's like, this is my mental property. They will claim it and try to take the money off of that YouTube video for this like big company or something. But if it's like somebody's body parts being distributed, like that was her.
I find that with active learning, it's great for students that are quiet. I feel like it gives them a voice and it makes them see like, oh, well, I'm thinking this and, you know, that's actually correct. The muddiest point is a way for you to assess what the students have been learning in class so far, and also to deal with any misconceptions they may have on the material. Was there anything from this week's lecture that was maybe confusing, unclear? That's one of the things I would ask that you can write down on an index card. I use this muddiest point technique to bring out every student's voice, for one, and two, for me to get a sense of, is there a pattern of students not understanding specific content. Another one that I use is called exit tickets. I call them exit tickets, where students at the end of class, within the last 5 minutes of class, I'll stop class, I'll give them an index card, and I said, okay, what is one thing you learned today? And what is one thing that you still find confusing? But the exit ticket is a way for them to think about and process. They've been sitting in a class for about 60 minutes. What did I learn today? So a think about it question is essentially more of a discussion-based question. So it's a prompt. They have to read it, internalize it, think about their answer, and then think, then they pair up with their neighbor or their table, depending on the setting of the room, and then they share it. They share their responses, and then they share out, meaning they report out to the larger group. I'm doing case studies with students now. So case studies are usually ingrained, or they surround a concept that they're learning in lecture. So for example, we just did a case study on Botox. What happens when Botox goes awry? So this woman had all this Botox done, and essentially her face caused her face in some areas to droop more than others. And so they had to kind of think about, well, what does that mean, and how is Botox actually affecting the cells? Active learning comes in a lot of different versions, but I think it's kind of the wave of the future in education, moving away from the conventional lecturing, now moving into how do we get students to come to the table and participate and take ownership of their education.